What is up, everybody? It's your boy DFS Jimmy back after a brief stint in retirement. Want to thank all the fans and listeners. Got a lot of kind messages over the last couple of weeks. Also want to extend a big thank you to Andrew over at Fanshare for helping me out and restructuring some of the production of this video so that I can keep bringing you this content each and every week. We heard your message loud and clear. We got it, and we're here. So, without any further ado, I want to get into this week's course. I want to get back on track with what you guys are used to, back on track with the early week course preview, and we're going to add in a few changes. We're also going to give you a peek behind the Fanshare Sports paywall each and every week, a peek into my process each and every week. I don't know if you want to follow my process exactly, but the tools are certainly there for you at Fanshare. And we are going to be doing that each and every week. So you guys are going to get, if you're a subscriber, you'll get, you're going to look at how I use the tools. If you're not a subscriber, you're going to look at some of the tools that are available for you if you want to sign up. So if you haven't already, make sure you get over to fansharesports.com. Check out the brand new website. It is really nice. They are also adding a brand new sport, which I'll touch on a little bit when we preview the website some. But we are going to get into the card. We're going to take a look at the course. This week we are at TPC San Antonio. Really the first stop on the Texas leg, since the match play doesn't really have a full field and it's a totally different type of event, even though it is held in Texas. Foothills of Austin, great event. Congratulations to Kiz getting it done. Fiery competitor, a lot of fun to watch. Really exciting there. Not to mention the Tiger Rory match. Whew, man, that is what the golf world needed. So, without any further ado, I want to say thank you to all of the fans and listeners for the kind messages and getting me back here. And let's get into it, man. We are just an event away from our first major of the season. We have wrapped up the match play and we are kicking off the Texas leg. It is TPC San Antonio. Shocking, it's in San Antonio. And it is one of the tougher golf courses on tour. No two ways about it. A Greg Norman designed, long, 7,400 yard, par 72, almost die-esque in its design. Norman really put the screws to some of these guys with regard to how he routed some of these holes, the way the course is laid out, and the technical nature that you kind of have to approach this golf course with. Despite having some invitingly large fairways, this is a first shot golf course. No two ways about it. You really do have to be driving the golf ball well if you want to find success at TPC San Antonio. You get a look behind me here, and this is the 18th, and this just gives you an idea of what to expect. You've got long par fives here. I think two of them are over 600 yards. The other two are pretty close to 600 yards. Really, realistically, nobody's reaching par fives in two this week. We'll get a look at golfers that have had success here in the past. We're also going to take a quick peek behind the paywall at Fanshare Sports, touch on their research tool a little bit, as well as our normal scorecard. So, behind me, you're going to see the 18th hole, and you also see a bit of the foothills there. San Antonio is hilly to some degree, and there is quite a bit of elevation change on this golf course. Where it is, actually, shout out to Kenny Kim, at Kendo VT, Kenny Kim of the Fantasy Golf Degenerates. He tweeted out earlier today that Norman designed this course when he was going through a divorce, which makes plenty of sense. It is a tough golf course, averages a full 1.1 stroke over par. Par fives not really reachable in two. Long par threes, difficult par fours. Really only have two short par fours that are scoreable. And you got a lot of sand. You got a lot of runoff areas. It's a tough driving golf course. Tough course to hit greens on because of all the runoffs everywhere. Oh, and we're in Texas, so it's windy. Like really windy. I think the average wind here at this course over 4 days and on the tournaments the last 5 years is 15 miles an hour. So club selection is going to be crucial here for these guys this week. And while the course is a bit exposed in some areas, there's a lot of areas that are tree lined and will kind of mess with the golfers, protect them from that wind, and make club selection a bit dicey. at least on your second shot. But make no mistake about it, this is a first shot golf course. Despite the width of the fairways, the further you try and push the ball down the fairway here, the narrower they get. It's almost a given on every hole. You really do have to put yourself in a great position off of the tee if you have any hope of holding these greens. Course is almost always playing fast and firm. I guess one of the notes is you look at some of the guys that have had success here over the past. The Aussies tend to do very well at this track. And a lot of that has to do with, I think it just plays a lot like the courses in Australia. It's got a little bit of elevation, but plenty of runoffs, fast, firm, lots of wind. You really do have to be dialed in and hitting good golf shots. You got to hit solid golf shots here. If you're mishitting anything or you're kind of trying to hang on, you can kind of forget it. I mean, the wind's going to eat you up out here. You look at, we'll get into a little more of that with some of the winners and some of the guys that have had success here. But suffice to say, a technical track that you really have to find the short grass on, and you need to be judicious about your tee shots and your club selection here in order to find any kind of success. This is the 18th hole behind me, a true three-shot golf hole. I mean, you're going to have some guys that might go after it if they're trying to win the tournament here or trying to close out strong, but you're talking about guys that are trying to cover 250 with playing a big draw or something over that creek behind you, and you got the bunkers in the back. It's a tough finishing hole. Despite playing under par, it's just a tough par 5. The par 5s here are some of the toughest on tour, if not the toughest. The first hole, the 9th hole, annually rank in the top 50 most difficult. Just a tough golf course, guys. Greg Norman really did a great job of putting together a technical track, and the winning scores here, none of them ever get to 20 under. You're talking 12 to 16 under, 12 to 17 under is going to win it here. So you just got to be on your game. You got to be striking the ball well if you want to find success here in Texas. But I also want to show you the runoffs. This is the 17th hole. The 16th hole is actually really cool here. It's par 3. It's got the bunker right in the middle of the green. But you can see here in this hole behind me all the undulation in the green. Not just the undulation, the expansive. And when I say expansive, I mean there are large runoff and collection areas around this track. If you're chasing a tight pin throughout the week here and you're not on exactly, or you're just a little long or a little short, you're going to find yourself chipping back towards the pin for birdie and making yourself grind for pars. And that'll be evident when we look at some of the guys that have had success here at this track. But you can see here that everything runs away, and most of the time, if you short side yourself, you're chipping back into a green that's running away from you. A lot of undulation, despite being in Texas and what people think being real flat, there's a lot of rolling hills in this part of Texas, in the southern eastern part of Texas. Especially Austin as well. It's going to be similar to some degrees how Austin plays, Austin Country Club. And Greg Norman, a bit die-esque in this design because, again, it is a pretty technical track for Norman. So just something to keep in mind. Just, you're really going to have to find guys that are not only good with the drivers, but they're on with their irons right now, because otherwise they're going to be chipping all day. Scrambling does play a big part here. And the putting can be difficult on this track if you find yourself in the complete wrong quadrant. As you can see, there's just a giant ridge that runs through this green. Not a flat golf course at all. So just something to keep in mind as we move forward. But let's get into quick peek of Fanshare's brand new website. You notice PGA up here, NFL. These are the two staples. They've always led the industry here in these two things for aggregation of player, who's talking about what players, ownership projections, things like that. The database is really coming along for Fanshare, not only for PGA and for NFL, but you notice NBA. NBA is on the way. It's going to be a big deal, especially for ownership projections and GPPs. So stay tuned for the NBA product to launch on Fanshare. But right now we're focused on PGA. And before I get any further into this, make sure if you enjoy this video, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button so you get notified of my videos for the next week. It means a lot to me, means a lot to Fanshare. It's also just the right thing to do. So hit the button. It's easy. Moving on. So This is the research tool on the backside of Fanshare Pro. I'm not going to get into the trending topics or the lineup builder or the form guide that they have. Right now, we're just going to touch on the research tool. I've loaded in the 2 San Antonio courses that have been traditionally played here, and I've sorted this by average number of birdies. When we're playing DraftKings, it's all about the birdies. It seems like weekly this season, you've got a guy finishing outside the top 20 that's outscoring guys that are inside the top 10 just because they have so many birdies. So quick look at Fanshare's birdie tool, or at least the way I like to look at it. Guys that have had success here at this track, averaging that, and this is average across the tournament. I think they have 5 different events that have been held in this database right now. Joaquin Niemann, no surprise after his performance last year, really lit the field up, playing with Sergio in his debut almost. Wasn't quite his debut, but certainly his best finish on tour. Niemann, great score in DraftKings points. DraftKings points gained significant, but he and Grayson Murray tied for the most average birdies they're showing. Keith Mitchell playing really strong golf right now. In one showing, he's had 20 birdies. Julian Surrey, a Texas guy out of college, 19 birdies. Scrolling down a little bit, Jordan Spieth, 18 birdies. Dustin Johnson, 18. Jimmy Walker is sort of the surprise guy. Jimmy Walker, when we get into some course history, by far and away the best course history of anybody in the field. Andrew Landry, last year's winner, averaging 17 birdies, making 2 for 2 cuts at this difficult track. What does Andrew Landry do really well, not besides make birdies and putt well? Drives the ball extremely accurately. And that's crucial here at this track this week, guys. You have got to put yourself in position off of the tee with the wind. Very simple. If you are not putting yourself in position off the tee, you can forget about trying to get to the greens here. And we'll get into that here in the scorecard in a second because there's only 2 really short par 4s. The rest of them, these guys are hitting long irons or better into greens. So the first shot is really crucial to be in the short grass and give yourself an opportunity to get on the green in 2 for some of these longer par 4s. Kevin Chappell, one of the most consistent players here, 4 for 4 cuts. Speaks a lot to strokes gained ball striking, right? That's what Kevin Chappell does really well. Not a great putter by any stretch of the imagination, but probably the most consistent performer year in and year out at this track with regard to DraftKings scoring and finishing position. So we'll take a look at that here in a second. Shout out to Denny McCarthy getting his first win on the web.com tour today. Also happens to play this track pretty well. 16 birdies, 81 DraftKings points in his last appearance. So this is the back end of Fanshare. I personally like the night mode that they've added. I like things a little bit dark. I don't like them so bright. You can put it on the white background if you want, but big fan of that tiny little change from Fanshare, adding the night mode in. But definitely, if you're not already a subscriber to Fanshare, get over to fansharesports.com. Check out the new website, for God's sakes. Now, let's get into the card. This is the staple of this video series, and this week it is going to come in pretty handy. As you see, the only 2 groups of holes playing under par are the par 5s, all of them over 550 yards. And actually, let's just highlight them. We got one at 591, one at 567, one at 604, and 602. These are not 2-shot par 5s. You are not going to have eagle looks around this track. These are 3-shot par 5s. These are par 5s where you have to be dialed in with your short irons and your wedges, find a good number to lay up to, convert your birdie opportunity. That simple. This is not a birdie fest. This is a grinded out, beat you up, grueling kind of week for these golfers. Wind is always an issue here, and it plays a factor in scoring for sure. Again, the course average is 1.1 strokes over par. The only other group are the 2 short par 4s. One of them happens to be early in the round. The other one happens to be very late in the round. Actually, one of my favorite closing stretches in golf is here at TPC San Antonio. 15 through 18, really interesting stretch of holes. 15 is a really difficult par 4. As you see, average is almost a quarter stroke over par. The 16th is a really interesting hole. You've got a big bunker right in the middle. Looks like a freaking donut for a green. You got a big bunker right in the middle of the green. Depending on the day and where they want to put the pin, it makes for some really interesting shot selections. And with the wind, the clubs that guys select will vary drastically from day to day. The 17th, one of the easiest holes on the course. That was actually the hole I showed you just a minute ago. Definitely the last opportunity to make a birdie on a par 4, and just really the last opportunity to make a birdie, because the last hole, the par 5 18th, is no gimme. You look at the scoring averages, 0.03 under par. One of the toughest par 5s on tour. And so the 17th really is the last opportunity, but you got a lot of risk reward between 14 and 18 here on this track, and a lot of opportunity for guys to get aggressive if they're chasing, and a lot of opportunity for guys in the front to give it away. So pay attention to the last 4 holes this week. One of my favorite closing stretches. 16, one of my favorite par 3s on all the tour with the bunker right in the middle of it. So that said, I mean, you look at the approach distances, none of the par 5s you're getting 2 and 2. So the approach distances are really all long irons around here. You're talking 175 to 200 for the most part. Got to be dialed in with the long irons. But more importantly, you can get away with mediocre long irons here as long as you're finding yourself in the fairway off of the tee. You just can't do it if you're in the rough just a little bit. And the rough tends to be kind of short here. But the trees, these are tree line fairways. The fairways are fairly generous, but if you're not on your game with the driver, you can forget about trying to post scores here. You're just going to be fighting all day. You're going to be fighting all day out of the rough, into the wind. It's just a tough golf course. It's not a good look if you're in the rough and playing from the rough all day. This course is going to eat you alive. So guys really do have to focus on the tee ball here. And it's a long course. So it's not like they have the opportunity to club down to guarantee themselves fairway. Guys are going to have to hit driver. They're going to have to hit it often. And they're going to have to hit it well into crosswinds. One of the things Norman did here is you got a lot of elevation change from tee to fairway to green and back and forth, right? So you've got holes that play uphill from the green or from the tee box into the fairway. It's all uphill. Those holes are going to play downwind. The holes that go the other way, where you're teeing off on an elevated tee box and you're going down to the fairway, all those holes play into the wind. Traditionally speaking, of course, the prevailing wind here. So really interesting design concept from Norman there. Again, very Dye-esque in the way he approached design of this course. Really keeps the players guessing, does not really allow them to get comfortable in any sort of aspect of their games. The way the course is routed, to go back and forth in and out of the wind, or into the wind and with the wind. So if the wind is up, it definitely is going to affect scoring. This is also the course, guys. Don't forget 2015, where it wiped out an entire wave of golfers. Literally a whole wave of golfers. Like 5 of them made the cut. The rest of them missed the cut. So weather annually plays a factor at this track, and a big factor. So make sure that you are checking the weather as you lead up to lock this week. Certainly an opportunity for tee time stacking or stacking of waves if weather is going to be an issue. But even if the weather is mild here for Texas, mild Texas weather means average 15-mile-an-hour winds. Okay, so wind's going to be a factor. Look for good wind players. The Aussies tend to do pretty well here for that reason. Now, we know where golfers are going to score. We know where they're going to struggle. The par 3s are all long here. It's just a long iron ball striking golf course, guys. Not a whole lot more to say. You do have to scramble. All your game has to be in order here. If your irons are on, you can get away with not scrambling a ton, but even the best iron players are going to have to scramble at this track. Adam Scott has played well here, an Aussie that can't putt worth a damn, but can ball strike. And that's the key here. Find the fairway. Find the green. Greens are pretty tough to hit traditionally. Fairways, on average, they're a little tougher than average to hit, but guys can hit them if you're not going for like the 320-yard drives, 300-plus yard drives. The fairways are fairly generous here, so you just have to be judicious with your tee shots and make sure you're taking your opportunities at the right times here off of the tee. So let's get into the guys that have had success here at this track, the guys that have not had success here. Charlie Hoffman, the best adjusted course history of anybody in the field. You see he had back-to-back top 11s, and then he won in 2016. Actually, shout out to Charlie Hoffman. Was my first GPP win here at this track because of Charlie Hoffman. Besting Patrick Reed that year. So, little soft spot in the heart for old Charlie Hoffman at this track. Also, a big shout out to him just getting healthy this year. I don't know if you guys have noticed, Charlie Hoffman down like 35 some odd pounds, looking svelte. ready for the season. Needs to get his swing dialed in with the loss of weight. But either way, this is Charlie's track. Same thing with Jimmy Walker. Another guy that, really strong ball striker, really good wind player, grew up in Texas. 2016 was the off year when he was really struggling with the Lyme disease. But you notice he bounced back in 17 and 18. Really his only good performances in 17 and 18, it seems like, when he just wasn't really on. But still finds comfort at this track, finds a way to get it done. Matt Kuchar, I want to point something out real quick before we get too far along. This is a long golf course. 7,400 yard par 72. There's not a long hitter in here in this top 10. None of these guys are long. Shit, Jim Furyk's like 60 years old. Still putting up consistent results at this track. Didn't play in 16 or 17, but 2014 had a 6. Just last year, coming off of wrist surgery, puts up a 26th. This is a strategic golf course that can be gotten if you just take your time and you're patient. Chris Kirk, not a bomber at all. Finds success here. Ryan Moore, not a bomber. Ryan Palmer, not a bomber. Jordan Spieth hadn't played here the last 3 years. Who knows what to expect with his current form, but 2014, 2015, when he was in good form, this is his kind of track. Find the fairway, strong irons into the green, drop a few putts, scramble when you have the opportunity or when you need to. Matt Kuchar, same thing. He's lackluster performance the last several years here, but this course suits his game. So I do want to point that out, that while this is a really long course, you have to go down to Ali and Joaquin Niemann before you find a bomber. And they're not even bombers, really. They're not even the guys that we think of when we think of bombers. These are just a bit longer hitters, right? So despite its length, this is not a bomber's track. Does it help? Sure. But it only helps if you're finding the fairway. And that's what these guys here at the top do really well. They all find fairways. All of them. None of these guys are missing fairways bad. They're all putting themselves in a good position off of the tee to make a golf shot. And that's really all you got to do around here. If you can play the wind, you can stay patient, and you can grind out pars, you can find yourself in contention on Sundays. Very simple here. The wind is a factor. I know that Josh Culp over at Future Fantasy has strokes gained wind players and such. If that's your bag, go for it. Definitely dive into some of those guys. The Aussies, all the Aussies tend to be good wind players. But you look at Charlie Hoffman, Jimmy Walker, Jordan Spieth, Ryan Palmer. These are all accomplished wind players. These are all guys that are known for playing well in the wind, playing well in adverse conditions even. So definitely something to keep an eye on and to take a look at is the weather this week. But you don't have to hit it far to find Billy Horschel, for God's sakes. Billy Horschel, I can outdrive Billy Horschel, right? But Billy is a great long iron ball striker. And when he's on, that run in 2014, we all remember that, right? They named a rule after him, for God's sakes. So this course is about form. It's about strategy. It's about finding fairways and being on with your long irons. And then if you can get a few putts to drop, you can find yourself in contention. Tony Finau, maybe the only true bomber on the list, has played this course twice in the last 5 years. Once he MDF'd close to it, and then the other one is a top 3 when he was on 2 years ago. So length is not going to hurt you for sure, but really that's not what you want to be focused on this week. You want to be focused on strategic ball strikers that are in form. That's where you want to be, and wind players. Those are the 2 angles you want to be working. Those are the 2 angles I'm going to be working. Martin Laird's an interesting case in terms of course history. Pretty good wind player, but he's got real high ball flight, but he's great off of the tee. And that's where Martin's made his bones here at this track. So you scroll down, you see there's just a lot of hits and misses, not a lot of consistency. A lot of it has to do with the field here at this track. It's one of the weaker fields, just before major. But the other has to do with the fact that the wind and the weather really do dictate how this course plays year in and year out. It always plays tough, but depending on what your draw is, it can very well dictate how competitive you have an opportunity to be in a given week. So just remember, keep an eye on weather this week for sure. Make sure that that's a part of your process this week is weather. And definitely, if you're going to enter multiple lineups, take the opportunity and stack the waves on a couple of them, just to give yourself a hedge. This is Texas. We've seen it year in and year out since 2015, where weather has played a significant factor at this tournament. Don't ignore it this year. But again, I think it's pretty self-explanatory when you look at the guys that have a lot of success here. You don't need to be a bomber. You don't need to be trying to get par fives and 2. You need to be consistent. You need to be consistent for 4 days off of the tee and into the green. Very simple. The putts will drop for these guys. It is overseeded Bermuda. They do make it to be kind of like Augusta in the sense that they want to make the greens a bit overseeded and have them rolling similarly. Quite a bit of undulation as well on the greens at this track. But guys, that's it for me this week. Again, make sure you hit the like button down below. Make sure you hit the subscribe button as well. Helps me out, helps fans share out a lot. Happy to be back. Can't wait to get into the Masters next weekend. Try and get the preview out early for everybody. But once again, your boy, DFS Jimmy, signing off this week. Good luck.